Welcome, guys, to another One Warrior podcast. Happy Thanksgiving week for those of you that celebrate Thanksgiving. This will be out on Wednesday, so this will be out the day right before Thanksgiving. I hope you guys all have a great Thanksgiving. When I was trying to think of a podcast topic today, I was going between a couple different topics. I put out a poll on my Instagram stories, and there was an overwhelmingly pick to do this podcast today, which is fitness and nutrition lies in the fitness industry. The other choice I had was how to correct skinny fat syndrome, and the votes weren't even close. The votes were like 82 to 23. It was pretty crazy. So you guys apparently want me to talk about lies in the fitness industry. So I've gathered a list of the top lies in the fitness industry from different websites and different things, and we're going to go through them today, and you're going to find out what's true and what's not true. So we're just going to go start right into this list because, honestly speaking, the fitness industry is the most literal corrupt industry ever. And I think one reason why is because whenever there is a problem, people look for the fastest way to fix it. We live in an age where people want instant gratification. And this happens with our bodies too. People see, an ad online or a brand saying, get abs in 6 weeks with this fat loss, or with this fat loss diet, or with this super fat loss supplement. People fall for this. And this is called snake oil or placebo. A lot of these things people think work, and they even may say and swear by them, but in the long run of things, they don't matter. They're placebos, they're snake oil. They were made and marketed up as the be-all, end-all. And social media has really helped, really destroy the fitness industry when it comes to creating more and more snake oils on the market. Because anybody, I don't know if you guys know this, but anybody can come up with a new supplement brand, and it doesn't need to be, and for those of you that don't know too, supplements like pre-workouts, they don't need to be validated by the FDA or anything like that. They can literally be created and put out on the market for people to buy. Literally, there are ways to create a pre-workout in 1 week and have it on the market in the next week. That's literally where we are in this day and age, where anybody can create a pre-workout and have it on the market in production within a couple weeks and be selling it and saying that this pre-workout is everything and this pre-workout will change your life. And the problem with this is these pre-workouts, most of them out there, are low dosed, are super low dosed. And I'm going into this before I get into this list because I want you to understand how corrupt this fitness industry is. We're going to take, for example, a pre-workout that a lot of people swear by, and that's C4. C4 is the most bullshit pre-workout. I mean, one of the most bullshit pre-workouts out there. People love it because they take it and they feel like a superhero. But why are they feeling like a superhero? What is in it that they're feeling like a superhero? C4 has a lot of caffeine, 364 to 400 milligrams of caffeine to be exact, depending on the strength of the C4 you take. But C4, you're getting that energy because of the caffeine. The beta-alanine in there, the citrulline malate, I think there's 1 gram of citrulline malate. You need 6 at least to feel any effect from it. So you see, in these pre-workouts that these people sell, they low dose them because they're cheap to make, and they still charge $30 to $35 a month. For each use. They usually most pre-workouts last 30 days. That's why I say a month. People buy them monthly. So they're spending this $30, $35 on this pre-workout that is low dosed, and they are making this person a fortune that created it. Now, I'm not talking about C4. C4 has been around a long time. They are a multi-million-dollar company. I'm talking about these other just instantaneous, made pre-workouts that you hear about, and then the next 2 weeks they're famous and people are buying them because it's happening all the time. Anybody, an 80-year-old woman could create a pre-workout and have it on the market in 2 weeks. It isn't that hard. You really can do it pretty easily nowadays, which is a scary, scary thing for people that are younger, that don't know dosages, because they can fall into this. They can see people on social media presenting this as the next all be all. And in reality, you're just making that person get rich, and you're buying an underdose supplement. And really, we've talked about on this podcast plenty of times the only supplements that I recommend and the only pre-workout supplements that I recommend. And for pre-workout, that is 5 grams of creatine, 6 to 9 grams of citrulline malate, depending on how much you weigh. A lighter person can get away with 6. Heavier, over 200, might want to go to 7 to 8. And if you weigh over 225 to 250, you might want to even go to that 9 to 10 to really push that limit, because the dosages in the studies were all the way from 6 to 10 grams. But beta-alanine, we know that beta-alanine, us One Warrior listeners, we know beta-alanine that is pretty much a useless supplement. Beta-alanine is only useful for if you're doing reps over 15 reps. You're really never going to notice beta-alanine unless you're doing more than 15 reps, just because it's an endurance supplement. It helps with endurance. So beta-alanine is one that's hyped a lot in the market because it makes you feel itchy and makes you feel good to just want to train, and you're only going to feel the effects of that, though, over 15 reps. And there's a lot of supplements like this. There's a lot of different things like this out there that do not need to be in a pre-workout. Like I've said, the main 3 things, or 4 things, I guess you could say, in any pre-workout that I take, because I make my own pre-workouts. I don't buy branded pre-workouts. But that is, 5 grams of creatine, 6 to 10 grams of citrulline malate. Let's see here. Sodium. So I usually do 1/4 a teaspoon of, which is 500 milligrams of sodium. So I throw that in there, just table salt, iodized table salt, so I can get my iodine in then too. And then also a cup of coffee. 1 cup of coffee has 180 milligrams of caffeine. That is an awesome amount of caffeine. You don't need 300, 400, 500 milligrams of caffeine to go train with weights. You should not need that. 180 is plenty. You should feel fire with coffee. Those 4 things, that's all you need. You can save so much money by not falling into all the crap on the market, all the snake oils on the market, and all that stuff. Now, I just wanted to put that out there. I know that was a little rant, but that's going to go into the rest of this podcast today, when you can really see, what being a sheep does in the fitness industry. You make other people rich. You buy a bad product. They think even though you think it's a good product, you make other people rich, and the cycle continues. That's why I say the fitness industry is the most corrupt industry out there, outside of our presidency right now. So first one on this list, we're going to go right into this list now. Carbs at night make you fat. This is false. Carbs at night do not make you fat. You can eat carbs any time of the day. It doesn't matter. Breakfast, morning, night. It doesn't matter. People have this, people think that when you go to bed at night, your metabolism in your body just shuts off. And this is just asinine. Your body doesn't shut off. There's a lot of things working in the background when you sleep. Cell regeneration is a big one. And that takes a lot of energy. There's a lot of things that go on when you're sleeping that people forget about. That's why eating carbs at night, or any food for that matter at night, is not going to just go to fat. People also forget that calories, you have to think of calories in a 48, 72 weekly time span, not just every day. You're not going to just get fat in one day. It doesn't work like that. It happens. That's why, you can go out and have a big cheat day or whatever and be fine. It doesn't work like that. It takes a while for those calories to break down. Now, obviously, if you cheat one day and cheat another day, you're going to start noticing fat gain by the 3rd day, just because those calories have already added up. 3,500 calories is a pound. So that can either be a pound of muscle or a pound of fat. It doesn't matter. But if you're overeating on calories, that is when you put on fat. If you are eating carbs at night and you're within your calories for the day, you're fine. This whole myth that you can't eat carbs at night because they get stored as fat, it's really asinine. It's very asinine. Next one. Fats in your diet make you fat. False. Fats in your diet only make you fat when you eat an abundance of them, or you're overeating in your calories. The same with carbs. We like to demonize different macronutrients just because it makes us feel like we have control. And when we do that, it really can mess with our mentality and what we think of food. Fats in your diet don't make you fat. The fat in your diet will only make you fat if you push those calories over the top from those fat calories, meaning you are eating in a surplus. If you're eating in a surplus and you're taking in very high fat, there is maybe a chance you will put on more fat. Fat is the easiest macro to be stored as fat. But remember, only in a calorie surplus. So if you are dieting, for example, you're eating less calories in the day, and you decide to go with more fats in your diet, you're not going to put on fat because you're already in a deficit. But if you're in a bulk and you're eating a lot of fats and you are trying to put on weight, that is when maybe fats will add fat to your actual body because you're in a surplus. Now, am I saying to avoid fats in a surplus? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. You need fats. I recommend, 0.45 to 0.5 per gram for your pound of body weight. Basically, just multiply your body weight times 0.45 or 0.5, and that's how many grams of fat I recommend you eat in a day. What I'm saying is don't overly eat the fat calories, calories from fat when in a surplus because they are more easily stored as fat than carbohydrates. Carbohydrates are more likely to be stored as glycogen, which is muscle fuel, what makes you feel pumped. That carbohydrates are more likely to fuel that, while fats are, in abundance, more likely to get stored. That's just how the body works, which makes sense. You eat more fats, and if you're in a surplus, the body stores them for a later date. It's just like an evolutionary standpoint. Too much protein can't be digested all at one time. False. False. Think about this as an evolution standpoint and how God created us. Would it make any sense for the body to, be starving and then kill a giant meal, go out hunting and kill a giant meal, then the person feasts and eats a bunch, eats like 200 grams of protein in a couple sittings, and then their body only utilizes 50 grams of that? Does that make any sense physiologically? No. God made us very, very amazing creatures that can handle a lot of stuff. One of that being protein. The body will handle and digest and take in all the protein that you give it. There's a myth out there that if you eat more than 50 grams in a meal, your body just lets it go. It forgets about it. It doesn't get utilized. And that is completely stupid to think like that. The body's going to utilize everything you give it. If you give it to it in one meal or you give it to it in 5 meals, the body is going to go through those calories and utilize it eventually. Now, there may be more benefits to feeding protein throughout the day. Protein muscle synthesis. The more times that happens during the day, muscle protein synthesis, the more times that gets activated throughout the day, usually the better for muscle gains. So that there might be a beneficial bodybuilding reason to eat protein throughout the day, split your dosages into 50 to 60 grams or depending on how much protein you take in a day. But if you are only eating a couple meals a day and you're taking in more protein and you're taking in like 100 to 120 grams in one meal, you are fine. It's really stupid when I hear people say, "Oh, you're never going to digest all that protein. That the protein is just going to go to waste." Yeah, no, it's not going to go to waste. Not one bit. Every part of that protein will eventually be utilized. All right. You need to get in a meal the second you leave the gym. False. Don't be one of those people that thinks right after you get out of the gym, my metabolism is heightened, my body's like a sponge, I can go eat anything, I have to go eat something, otherwise my muscle's gonna just turn into mush, I've got to fuel the muscle. Don't be one of those people. Because science shows us that window is actually more than the half hour that people make it out to be. Whoever created that really did not know anything, because the window is actually up to 2 hours where your system is heightened for nutrients. And that's all it is. It's heightened. Meaning that if you don't eat in those 2 hours and you decide to eat a little bit later, you're still going to make as much recovery. What happens though is after 2 hours after training, in that 2 hour window that's been shown in studies, is you are heightened to absorb more nutrients. If you wanted to include like ice cream in your diet and you're in a diet, not in a surplus, and you wanted to have ice cream, this would be a good time to put that ice cream in your diet if you're trying to diet because your body is more heightened to use those calories for recovery, for glycogen replenishment, all the good things after a workout. Your body is heightened in that state, okay? That's all it is. It's heightened to take in more calories around there. It's not going to magically, that 2-hour window is everything you eat is going to go to muscle. That's not what I'm saying at all. What I'm saying is, all that I'm saying is after you train, 2 hours later, you have a window kind of where you can utilize utilize a little bit more calories. Your body is just ready for the intake of that after a training session. That's why people will say that window after the workout. But lots of people, the myth on this is thinking that you have 30 minutes to get in whatever you're going to get in, and then the body goes back to a normal metabolic rate, your body goes back to a normal sense-wise, and everything like that. And that is just not true. It just doesn't work like that. You have about like 2 hours to really get in a solid, good meal where your body is in that ready state for replenishment. It's a lot longer than you may think. And also, if you miss that window, it's not the end of the world. Just eat a meal when you can. You'll be fine. You need a protein shake after you train. False. Protein, okay. I like protein powders. Don't get me wrong. Protein powders, if you're in college, I used a ton of protein powders in college. They very, very helpful. It just made sense. When you needed protein, you could take a scoop of protein and you're good. Later on in life, though, when I found that my schedule wasn't nowhere near as crazy, I could actually make meals and I didn't have to, live in a shaker cup basically, or around a shaker cup, around protein. Once I found that I didn't need to do that for scheduling wise, my schedule was a lot more free, then I stopped taking protein. And that actually wasn't until like 2 or 3 years ago where I stopped buying protein. I've always taken a protein shake after my workout for the longest time. But a couple years ago, I just decided to take it away and just see what happens. See if anything is different with my physique. And nothing changed. I took it away. I replaced it with a big glass of milk instead. And what happened? I actually saved money. That's what happened. My wallet grew a little bit because you're not spending $30 a month on protein. Usually most proteins last you about $30 a month. So I took it out, didn't notice a difference. So I did my little experiment on myself and found out that protein is just really not needed after you train. Protein powder. You don't need to do a protein shake after you train. It's a waste of money. Can you do one? Sure. Is it a little bit helpful? Maybe. Is it so helpful that it's worth the extra money you're going to pay for it? No, I don't think so. I think you're better off just getting a big glass of milk or even just going and getting dinner. I mean, Stan Efferding, I think, said it best. Steaks before shakes. Steaks before shakes. I mean, that's not my term. That's Stan Efferding's, and he's a beast. Steaks before shakes. Just something to think about. Sodium is bad on the heart. Okay. Before you doctors, if there's any doctors that listen to my podcast, bash me on this, I'm going to use a doctor's standpoint on this. So my little sister went into cardiac arrest and basically was pronounced dead for, I think it was like 5 to 8 minutes. I can't remember the exact time, somewhere in there. She was pronounced dead though. She had a cardiac arrest. Now, after that cardiac arrest, and she lived through, and she came back to life, and we call that her death day, and she's still alive and good. She got a pacemaker put into her and whatnot, and she had this fabulous heart doctor. This heart doctor that knew a lot about hearts. He was a specialist in hearts. And the heart doctor actually recommended my sister to eat more salt. This heart doctor, prescribed more sodium because this heart doctor understood sodium is an electrolyte. Now, if you have my book, you understand why I talk a lot about electrolytes and the importance of them, because they are the foundation of your energy levels and your activity and your muscular activity throughout the day. When your electrolyte levels are off, bad shit starts to happen in the body. And what I see a lot is people drink so much water and they naturally don't eat a very high sodium diet, and they continue to drink more and more water. They're peeing clear. They're peeing every half hour, and they think that's healthy. All you're doing is peeing out. So you're peeing out all those electrolytes. So you're flushing your system out. You are not hydrated. People need to remember hydration is not just water. Hydration is more about electrolytes than it is water. Trust me, your body is going to be fine water-wise. As long as you're getting, like, what I recommend for people for water, I tell them divide their body weight in half, and that's how much ounces of water they should drink a day. If you drink a little bit more, that's fine. Just don't overdo it. There's this consensus in the fitness industry to carry around a gallon of water or 2 gallons of water a day. I've seen some people do this crazy thing. Carry 2 gallons of water a day and have it finished by the end of the day. That is stupid. You are flushing your body out with the very electrolytes that make it function at its best. That's sodium, that's potassium, that's calcium, that's magnesium. All these electrolytes, and I'm sure I missed one in there. If you have my book, I have them all in there, and I have the annotations behind them and everything like that. If you have my book, you know exactly what I'm talking about here. But sodium is not bad on the heart. That was what I was trying to break down here. Sodium is not bad on the heart. Sodium is actually good for the heart, especially if you are an avid person that trains a lot. Sodium, if you live in like closer to the equator too, you sweat more and whatnot during the day, the hotter it is, the more sun you take in, that's more sodium too you need to take in. Now in the winter months, do I recommend taking in a crazy amount of sodium? No. I recommend taking in enough to fuel your sessions. For instance, in the summer, I take in about 8,000 milligrams a day to fuel my extra activity, to fuel my workouts. I'm more active in the summer. It just makes sense. I take in about 8,000 in the summer. In the winter, do I take in 8,000? No. In the winter, right now I'm taking about 5,500 to 6,000. Somewhere in there, depending on how hard the training day is. If it's a leg day, maybe I'll take in more sodium, just because I want my sodium higher. Now, I'm not mentioning potassium here because most people, can get potassium from fruit and whatnot. I don't recommend taking potassium in supplement form. That's a discussion for another day. And if you have my book, I explain exactly why. But sodium is something that gets demonized all the time. Sodium is bad this. Sodium is bad that. Sodium is not bad, especially if you lift weights. If you lift weights, I recommend even adding sodium to your water when you train. My water bottle, and when I train, I throw 500 milligrams of sodium in with my water for the day when I train. It helps, and you're going to notice it too. If you are on a low sodium diet and then you switch to a higher sodium diet, you might bloat for a couple days while your body adjusts to that extra sodium. But after your body adjusts to it, in a couple days, you're going to feel like you just got on steroids. I know people that have gotten and included more sodium in their diet, and then they're like, what is this? Is sodium like a steroid? Because they feel incredibly different. Their energy goes through the roof. Their workouts go through the roof. They break PRs that they haven't touched in years. Haven't even came close to breaking in years. And they're fascinated. But all that's happening is you're drinking a little less water, having more salt, and your electrolytes are better because you're not constantly flushing them out, which so many people do. When you constantly drink more and more water and not replenishing those electrolytes, that is a bad thing, and you're going to feel weak when you do that. That's something to remember. Anytime you feel weak, maybe look at your sodium. Have some salt. Have a teaspoon of salt. Have not a teaspoon. 1/4 a teaspoon of salt. You don't do more than 500 milligrams in one serving. It's kind of hard on the gut. I have done 1 gram in one serving before, and it kind of hits the gut kind of hard. Divide the grams up in the 500 milligram. Divide the milligrams up into 500 milligram dosages, and load that slowly before a workout. Like I'll do 500 milligrams an hour before I get to the gym, and then I'll do 500 milligrams probably right before I walk out the door, and then I'll do another 500 milligrams in my water while I train. That's usually how I go about it. And then, post-workout, if I feel sluggish with my glass of milk, I'll have another 500 milligrams, something like that. It doesn't need to be rocket science. Just stop flushing your bodies out. Electrolytes are super important, very important. They can literally change your training completely. Train fasted, you burn more fat. How many of you follow Instagram celebrities that always are doing something fasted? They're always presenting themselves to, do some exercise fasted and saying, oh, it burns more fat. It's false. This is false. You actually, and I'm going to try to explain this, and I want you to really pay attention here because this is really important. When you train fasted, you utilize more fat as fuel. True. That is true. And you might be thinking, well, you just totally debunked what you just said. Training fasted, you burn more fat. Okay, yes, you burn more fat during the actual workout. Yes, when you are in a fasted state, you are digging into ketosis. Ketosis is the utilization of fat as fuel. So when you train in a fasted state, you haven't eaten for, 12, 16 hours, you are utilizing in that present moment more fat as fuel. Yes, that is true. But here is what you need to know. When you work out with weights, when you train, your body does not want to use fat as fuel. It's not a good source of fuel to do that exercise. When you are in a fasted state and your glycogen is low, you're not going to have as good of pumps. You're not going to be able to lift as much weight. Your strength is going to be down a ton. So yeah, you may have a workout, you work out and you don't hit as much heavy weights, you can't train as hard. You're burning more fat as fuel during that training session. And you may think, oh, this is working, I'm training fasted, I'm going to get jacked. But you have to remember this next part that I'm about to tell you. When you fuel yourself before a training session, say a good solid meal, some protein, some carbs, some fats, and then you go train, your body has more fuel to use for the training session. Now, it's not going to use fat for that training session. It's going to use carbohydrates. Now, you may be thinking, well, that's stupid. I want to burn fat. I want to go fasted then. But here is where it gets really cool. When you eat a meal and you go train and you can train harder and you just feel like a beast and you have a pump and your glycogen stores are full and you have a really good workout, later on in the day, you're going to burn more fat throughout the day because you have heightened your metabolic rate for the day. You have heightened your insulin sensitivity for the day because you trained harder than you did when you were fasted. So you're going to burn more fat then as fuel because remember, fat is burned when you're not doing a lot of activity. You burn more fat being sedentary than you do then as like say working out. Working out, you use carbs as fuel. When you're out of breath, you are using carbohydrates as fuel. But when you're say walking down the street at a slow pace, that is when your body is reverting to fat. That is when it's pulling from fat stores. So then when you heighten your system for the day, when you eat a meal and then train and then have a killer workout, your system is literally primed for the rest of the day where you are burning more fat because you have literally heightened your metabolic rate for the day. Now this is all going to depend on a lot of things. It's going to depend on how lean you are already. It's going to depend how much fat storage you have already. This depends on a lot of different things. But the point is when you train with fuel, and then you go on through your day, you're going to burn more fat because you had a better workout, because you fueled your workout. Would you rather, think about it like this. I want you to, okay, you're in the gym, for maybe at a max 2 hours a day. 2 hours a day. Would you rather burn fat for those 2 hours? Or would you rather burn the fat or be in a more fat burning state because you worked harder for 22 hours? Because those 2 hours that you trained and then you fueled yourself for those 2 hours, the next 22 hours, your body is going to be in a heightened state because you trained harder than you did if you were fasted. Basically, you can't train as hard fasted as you can with fuel. And when you train with fuel, you train harder and you have a better system throughout the day. That's what I'm saying. Now, am I saying you have to train in the morning? No, I don't train in the morning. I train at night. But I'm saying for people that like to train in the morning, do not train fasted. It's way better to train with fuel. You'll have a better workout and you'll notice better results over time because you're building a better metabolic rate. You're teaching your body how to utilize carbs as fuel. All very good things. Don't get mixed up when you hear the people that say, train fasted, it burns more fat. Sure, it may burn more fat in the current 2 hours that you're training, but who wants to do just 2 hours? Like, I want my body to be a machine through the rest of the day. So it just makes sense. Fuel your body. You're going to benefit from that. Breakfast is the most important meal of the day. False. Breakfast, you don't need to eat breakfast. I have not eaten breakfast for like I don't know, 6, 7 years. I eat 2 hours before I train and I eat dinner. That's what I do. But now, am I saying though that breakfast is bad though? Am I saying that breakfast is evil, that you shouldn't eat breakfast? No, and that's not what I'm saying at all. Here's a good rule to follow. If you have an active job, you are working construction or something very active, I never recommend skipping breakfast because you need that fuel. This follows along with another rule I talk about in my book and that is, eat around your activity levels. When you're not going to be active, you don't need food. I work at a desk all day until, I go to the gym at night. So I don't eat usually till, 2:30, somewhere in there, because I don't need that fuel. I have my coffee, I can record podcasts, I can do client programming. I don't need to fuel myself because I'm at a desk. My body has plenty of fuel from the night before. So if you have a desk job, breakfast is pointless. Save those calories for later on the day and put them to use around your training. Eat a meal before you train, eat some after. This is just rules that I've followed in my life to be able to maintain a very easy leanness. People ask how I can maintain very easy leanness all year round, and that's just because I have it down to basically a science where you just fast when you're throughout the day when you're not training, and then around your workouts you eat food. It's really as simple as that for maintaining a lean, jacked body. Now, am I recommending when you're super young to do this? No. If I know I have like 80% of I think it's like down to 75% extra now. 75% of my listeners are in their early 20s, and actually some are in their teens, according to my demographic charts that I have. So for those people, you guys are young. You guys can make all the gains in the world yet. You guys obviously need to be doing things more optimal than I do. And that is what I recommend. If I could go back and do it all again, I would be eating every, 3 hours probably. Try to get 4 meals a day, basically. 4 to 5 at the max. That's what Lane Norton's research showed to be the most beneficial. About 4 meals a day. 4 good meals a day spread out through the day around your training session. Breakfast, lunch, dinner, and maybe like a pre-workout or post-workout snack, depending on when you train. That's how I would go back and do it if I was to do it again. That's what I recommend for my younger people listening to this. If you're younger, I do not recommend fasting through half the day. It's not going to be beneficial. You definitely, if you want to make the most out of your younger years, you want to fuel yourself throughout the day. Make that a habit. So breakfast can be important for those people. So breakfast is the most important meal of the day, though. That whole statement, that is false. You don't need to eat breakfast. There's no special thing that happens when you eat breakfast. Some people think when they eat breakfast, their metabolism is higher for the day. That's bullshit. It doesn't happen like that. You eat breakfast, you have used some calories for the day. That's all that happened. You didn't heighten your metabolic rate for the day by eating breakfast like a lot of people present to you. You can eat breakfast, you can skip it. It doesn't really matter. You can eat 1 meal a day or 5, doesn't matter. This is true when talking about body composition. So if you are only worried about your body composition, not your performance, not your overall health or whatnot, you can eat 1 meal a day or 5. It doesn't really matter. I said health there. That doesn't matter either. This is literally just talking about body composition. If you only care about body composition, what your body basically looks like, the composition of your body. It doesn't matter if you eat 1 meal a day or 5. The calories at the end of the day is what matter. As long as you hit your calories for the day, the results are going to be basically the same. But just like I said in the previous listing, if you are younger, you should be eating throughout the day. Fuel yourself throughout the day in your younger years because you need that extra fuel. You're younger. Your metabolism's a lot younger. You can handle more food in your younger years. So go with the 5 meals. Don't do 1 meal a day when you're younger. You have your whole life to decrease meals if you want to. Make the most out of those youth. Make the most out of your youth. Weight loss is all about what you do in the gym. This is false. How many of you guys know people that when they say they're going on a diet, all of a sudden their workouts look drastically different? They go from single set training to circuit sets and superset everything, and they feel like they have to get a sweat, and then they're doing cardio, and they do this and they train completely differently than when they were building muscle. So Then they get shocked at how much muscle they lost later on, and they're like, well, I don't understand. Well, yeah, because you started training differently than what you did when you were actually eating more food to build. When you're cutting, you should be training the same as when you're bulking. The only thing that's different is your nutrition. I will do 6 sets of 3, lifting heavier on a bulk, and I will do it on a cut. I lift the same exact way when I am on a bulk and I'm on a cut. The lifting does not change. The volume does not change. What happens, though, is I decrease food on a cut. When you're in a bulk, you eat more food. When you're in a cut, you eat less food. The weight loss is not about what you do in the gym. Weight loss is not about what you do in the gym. Weight loss correlates to nutrition. I can literally take somebody that never steps foot in a gym, and I could take them in a month and have them get leaner. Now, yeah, they won't look that good because they'll have less muscle. They just will look kind of skinny fat. But the point is, weight loss does not happen in the gym. You don't even need a gym for weight loss. That's all about food. You eat less food, you get leaner. You eat more food, you put on more weight. It's easy as that. There's no secret method. There is no secret exercise or secret exercise program. Doing tons of supersets and circuit sets. Sure, you may burn more calories during your workouts and you may sweat more, so therefore you deplete more water and you look more hard in the mirror, so you look more chiseled and whatnot. But this is just, it's an illusion. You can literally train like you're bulking and cut in your diet and you can get jacked. And that's what most of my people do that follow my methods do. We don't change the training whether somebody's cutting or bulking. That's why when people train with me, it doesn't matter if they're trying to lose weight or gain weight. They're going to do the same workouts as me because how it happens, how their body composition changes will happen in the kitchen. What you do in the kitchen will relate to whether you build muscle or you lose muscle or you gain fat or you lose fat. The training, though, should all be the same. Training should all be the same, whatever your weight loss or weight gain goal is. Training does not change. Lifting heavy makes you bulky. I'm sure you women, my literally like 12% of my listeners are women. I'm sure you women know exactly what I'm talking about when I say this. Lifting heavy weights makes you bulky. This is false. This is easily false. I mean, look at the guy in the gym that's lifting his ass off, going hard all the time, training absolutely all the time, trying to get massive, and he's barely putting on any size. That is a guy that's doing that. And guys have a lot more testosterone than you women do. Us guys, we can literally put on muscle more easier, okay? And we can't even get bulky. I've lifted for 16 years and I'm not bulky. So if you think that you are going to get bulky with a lower testosterone level than us men, really think about that. It makes no sense. Women can lift heavy. They can lift just like men. It doesn't matter. They will not become bulky. The only way you'll become bulky is if you take some crazy testosterone stuff, get on steroids. Then yeah, you can become bulky, but you're boosting your testosterone at that point to supernatural levels. If you are just normal, though, and you're not doing anything crazy like that, not doing steroids, you're going to have a harder time than men do to put on muscle. And we men, we struggle. It's very hard to put on muscle. Very difficult without steroids to put on muscle. So no, you can lift heavy all you want. You're not going to get bulky. Don't worry about that. Rep ranges matter. Different number for different goals. False. You might have been thinking that one was true. This is false. Rep ranges do not matter. You can achieve. So, okay, for example, you guys need to understand how volume works. Volume is weights times sets times weight lifted, okay? Reps times sets times weight lifted. That is your volume. So let's say you do a squat workout, 315 pounds, and you do 3 sets of 10 with 315 pounds. Okay, that volume, that you'd have to multiply that out. I'm not going to do it in my head. 3 times 10 times 315. That equals volume. If you did 10 sets of 3 with 315, you're going to get in the same amount of volume. Now, you may be thinking, oh, 10 sets of 3, that's training for strength. No, because the weight is the same. You did 3 sets of 10 with 315. 10 sets of 3 with 315 is the same amount of volume. Scientifically speaking here, you will turn up and utilize the same muscle tissue. You will build, you will build size as long as volume goes up over time. But as the volume, you could do 3 sets of 10 or 10 sets of 3. It doesn't matter. You can build just as much size with 10 sets of 3 as 3 sets of 10. The only downside to that is your workouts are going to take longer. 10 sets of 3 will take a lot longer than 3 sets of 10. You can build just as much muscle. Therefore, it's been proven rep ranges, they do not matter. What matters is volume over time. You could do 5 sets of 5, or you can do, let's see here, 5 sets of 5 is 25 reps, or you can do 3 sets of 8, which is 24 reps, very close. 3 sets of 8 or 5 sets of 5. As long as the volume is the same, you're going to build the same amount of muscle. That's what you have to remember. Rep ranges do not matter. You can do 3 reps, you can do 10 reps. You can do 15 reps or 20 reps. Now, past 20 reps, there were studies showing that past 20 reps, you just are not using enough weight to activate as much muscle fibers. Usually, when you're doing 20 reps, you're down to like 60% of your 1 rep max. And that is just not enough in what I've seen in the research and whatnot to show that it actually will help build muscle. So if you're lifting, 55, 60% of your 1 rep max, that's probably not where you want to train at. Majority of your training should be from 70% all the way, if you want to push the limits, to 90% of your 1 rep max. And then you can do the reps how you want. You can do sets of 3, sets of 5, sets of 8. The more reps, the less sets. If you want to do more sets, you do a little less reps. It's just up to you. But people that think, that when you start to cut weight, everything has to be 15 to 20 reps, that is totally wrong. Totally false. When you're cutting, you can do 3 sets of 5, 3 sets of 3, 5 sets of 1. It doesn't matter. What did I say earlier today? I said what you do in the gym does not matter for your body comp as what you do in the kitchen. If you're trying to gain weight, you eat more. If you're trying to lose weight, you eat less. What you do in the gym does not determine your goals. Same with the number of reps. Don't just start circuit training when you're trying to lose weight. Train exactly the same. Rep ranges and all that do not matter for the different goals. Now, I will say here, I do want to make sure you understand that if you're trying to be a power lifter, you're going to need to lift in lower rep ranges because this is a skill. We're talking about a skill now. Powerlifting is a skill, unlike bodybuilding. Bodybuilding is not a skill. Bodybuilding is just lifting a lot of weights, racking up a lot of volume over time and getting big. That's what bodybuilding is. But strength training, powerlifting, you need to practice that skill of lifting heavy. So yes, powerlifters, you need to lift in a heavier rep range than bodybuilders because you need to practice that skill. You need to be good at handling weight that is 85 to 95% of your 1 rep max. You need to know what that feels like. You need to be proficient in that. That is where the rep ranges matter when you're trying to get stronger. But if you're trying to build size training has been shown you can do 3 reps, 5 reps, 8 reps, 10 reps, 15, 20, doesn't matter. Volume over time is what builds size. Squatting is bad for the knees. Don't take your squats, don't do the squats because they're bad for your knees. You ever hear that one before? I'm sure you have, because it's a popular one. People will run away from squats because they're bad on the knees. This is false. Now, I do want to say, though, if you do quarter squats or half squats, that can be kind of bad on the knees and can be pretty bad on the knees if you have knee problems to begin with. But if you have a healthy knee, if your knees are pretty healthy. Now, I have bad knees, and I still squat. I love to squat, and I have bad knees. But what I found is as long as you're doing a full range of motion on squats, you're fine. Squatting in full range of motion is actually very healthy for the knee. People think going below parallel is bad on the knee. That is actually good on the knee. What's bad on the knee is doing half reps and quarter reps. If you're going to do half reps or quarter reps, do them on a leg press. It's a lot easier on the knee. It's a lot easier on the knee joint. It's just a lot safer to do those kind of reps on a leg press. Whenever you're squatting, though, always at least go 90 degrees, parallel to the floor. Your ass slightly below the back of your knee when you squat. You don't need to go ass to grass. I should have put that on this list too. Ass to grass. You don't need to do all your squats ass to grass. 90 degrees. That is where you should go. That's where the stretch reflex kicks in. That's what this, and the stretch reflex is literally what propels you out of the bottom of the squat. That's literally how we were designed to squat as humans. You don't need to go crazy ass to the grass. You can if you want, if it feels right, but you don't need to. But squatting, if you're doing half reps or quarter reps, that can be bad on your knees. And if you have knee problems, it can be very bad on the knees. But squatting is not bad on the knees, especially when you're doing full range of motion. Another one in there I just wanted to include real quick. It's not on the list. But people think, and I've heard this myth, if you squat and deadlift, you're going to build a blocky waist. No. A matter of fact, my abs actually looked best back in the day when I used to power lift. They don't look nearly as good now because when you utilize your abs for a squat, for deadlifts, you really utilize them. You utilize them a lot when you brace and everything. My abs looked fantastic 7 years ago when I used to power lift. They don't look nearly as good now. They don't look nearly as developed or whatnot just because I can't lift that heavy weight with my spine, my herniations that I have. But to say that squats and deadlifts will ruin your abdominal section because they'll make you have a blocky waist, no. You're going to have a damn fine looking waist. I guarantee it. Guarantee it. Especially when you learn how to brace properly for those movements. Your abs will look phenomenal. Incline bench is risky to tear your pec. So let's see here. That was like 6 months ago. 6 months ago, a pretty famous bodybuilder on Instagram had a video up, and he was doing incline bench with 500 pounds, I think it was on the bar. 500 pounds. And he did this rep, and he tore his pec completely off the bone. Completely off. And you saw this pec just fly literally and flip to the other side of his chest, and it was nasty. It was really nasty to watch. Well, after that video happened, I had tons of my clients email me refusing to do incline bench because they saw what happened to this bodybuilder. And I had to respond to each one of these people to explain why the incline bench is not going to do that to you. And for a lot of people then stopped doing inclines too. I heard this in person at my local gym. People were afraid to do incline anything. People were afraid to do incline flies, incline dumbbell press, incline barbell press, you name it. Incline was basically feared. People started fearing this, being like, I don't want to tear my pec. Okay, you need to look at that video. There is a lot of things that you could have predicted was going to happen in that video. The first thing that was wrong when I watched that video was this bodybuilder took a very wide grip, very wide, on an incline. That is never a good thing, to do a super wide grip on an incline with heavy, heavy weight, 500 pounds. Now, yes, you can do something called a guillotine press, which is a wider grip on an incline with a lighter weight. Not 500 pounds. That is the first mistake right there. The second mistake is the fact that he was going down super slow in the negative position with this 500 pounds. Now, for those of you that don't know muscle physiology, when you are in the stretch of the muscle, the descent of the muscle of an exercise, the negative position of an exercise, the negative is actually where you are tearing the muscle fiber. That is where the most muscle fiber is being torn at during a negative position. And this goes for anything, a bicep curl, tricep extensions, you name it. The negative portion of a rep is where you're actually tearing the muscle. That's why heavy negatives can actually be very beneficial when you're stuck in a rut. They can actually help put on quite a bit of size over time because of the muscle tear that they can create. And then as long as you're in a surplus, rebuild and whatnot. Heavy negatives are a very good thing to do. Heavy negatives on a 500-pound incline, though, absolutely, I mean, this was just an accident waiting to happen. You don't do your 1 rep or 2 rep or 3 rep max type of weight with a negative like that. The negative was ridiculously overemphasized. His grip was too wide. And also, it was just too much weight for what he was doing there. Sure, maybe he could have handled 500 pounds with a little narrower grip. But the negative that he was doing, the wider grip, that kind of just spelled out disaster. You are not going to rip your pec by doing incline bench. I guarantee it. You are not going to do it because you are not going to put on 300, 400, 500 pounds on an incline. I can guarantee you most of the listeners that listen to this podcast cannot incline over 300 pounds. And if you do, you're definitely not going to take a wide grip and a slow super negative. There is nothing to fear about the incline bench. Inclines are very, very healthy. Very healthy for the shoulder, very healthy for the actual upper chest. They're a very good movement. They're more beneficial than a flat dumbbell press. They're more beneficial than a flat bench press. They actually put your shoulders in a safer position than a flat bench press. They're not a bad movement, as long as you do them right. Don't fear the incline. The incline should be a staple in your chest training. Now, along with incline, the next one goes right along with this. You need to bench to build a good chest. You need to bench the weight to have a good chest. You ever hear that one? You need to bench press. Bench press needs to be in your program. This is false. You can build an amazing chest with other exercises. You can build a good chest with you could build a good chest with push-ups. Honestly speaking, when I went to college, I couldn't always go to the gym. I had to do a lot of push-ups and pull-ups and all that. And I didn't have a bad looking physique. My chest looked fine. So anytime you hear the words have to, chances are, or need to, these are words that you need to avoid in the fitness industry because there's never something that you need to or have to. They maybe can help or whatnot, but there's never, whenever you see that need to or have to word, that is something to run from. But yeah, you don't need a good bench to build, or you don't need to bench to build a good chest. Listen to some of my other podcasts. Listen to last week's podcast where I really explain how you can build an amazing chest without bench press. Strength equals size. Size equals strength. This is false. The strongest guy in the gym will not always be the biggest. And the biggest guy in the gym will not always be the strongest. To get strong, you have to train for strength. But just because you're training for strength does not mean you're going to get bigger. And just because you're training for size, just because you're building more muscle, does not mean you're going to build more strength. Strength and size are completely different. They need to be trained differently. To build strength, you train in a 1 to 5 rep range. You get proficient at heavier weights. 80 to 95% of your 1 rep max. For size, it doesn't really matter. Size, you can, like I said earlier, you can do lower reps or higher reps. It doesn't really matter. Size is kind of a one where that can flip back and forth. But the main thing is, strength does not equal size. Just because you're getting stronger does not mean you're getting bigger. And size does not equal strength. Just because you're building size does not mean you're going to be able to rep out 500 pounds on squat. Strength is a skill, not something that you just achieve with size. Cardio should be done before weights. False. And a lot of people fall into this one. A lot of people like doing cardio before their weights. They say it warms them up, it gets them ready to train. And sure, a little bit of cardio, 10 minutes, that ain't going to hurt you. That's going to be actually pretty beneficial, especially for leg day. Doing cardio on a bike 10 minutes beforehand can be very good. What I'm talking about is the people that do 30 minutes, 40 minutes, or even maybe an hour and then go lift weights. What happened during that cardio? You just utilized a bunch of carbohydrates that you had stored in your muscle tissue that were ready to help you lift weight, that you just used up in cardio. You just used a lot of glycogen that you could have been saved up, that was saved up. You could have maybe utilized a lot more and made more beneficial progress by lifting weights first. too many people below their load, so to speak, on cardio, and then by the time they get to the weights, they're not as strong. They have less glycogen storage. Their weight workout actually sucks then. When you're in the gym, you need to prioritize weights over cardio, even when you're trying to lose weight. Because if you can hold on to more muscle, even on like a diet, that is going to be so much better than doing cardio and getting weaker and getting smaller. Cardio is how you lose fat. False. Already talked about this. You can literally, do nothing and lose fat. I mean, fat is all about what you do with your diet. You don't need cardio to lose fat. Walking is the best form of cardio. This is true. Walking is the best form of cardio. I put this on here because basically anybody out there can walk. I mean, sure, if you don't have legs, maybe you're going to have a hard time with this. I mean, a wheelchair, you can roll it with your arms. Basically, what I'm trying to say here is anybody can move somewhat. And walking is a very easy form of cardio to do. It's very low intense. It utilizes fat as fuel mainly because you're not raising your heart rate super high or anything like that. When your heart rate is lower, you burn more fat as fuel. So walking is just a very good form of cardio. It's low intense. It doesn't take away a lot of energy. It's just healthy. It's healthy to go on walks. Fat is utilized as fuel in high-intensity interval training. This is false. There are some people that think the harder you work in the gym, the more fat is used. This is not true. The harder you work, the more carbohydrates are used. You'd be better off just going for a walk if you want to just utilize fat. Remember, build muscle in the gym with weights, get strong, build size, and go on some walks. You don't need to do crazy high-intensity interval training when you're doing weight training, too. It's just not needed. Too much protein is bad on the kidneys. False. Kind of went over this already, but too much protein is not going to be hard on the kidneys. It's only going to be hard on the kidneys if you have kidney problems. If you have kidney problems, maybe then you should eat maybe a moderate protein diet instead of a higher protein diet. But that's just something you're going to have to know from, your doctor and whatnot. But too much protein, though, that's that saying that people say is too bad on your kidneys. That's false. That is really false. Meat causes cancer. This is false. A few years ago, I think it was like 3 years ago, a study came out and it made the fitness industry shocked. And it scared a lot of people. And this is also when a lot of people decided to be vegan. And this is also when you start to hear about famous Olympians and famous basketball players and football players switching to vegan diets because they heard about this study. This was a big thing about 3 years ago. Everybody was switching to vegetarian, vegan because they heard about this study that went on mainstream, and it was on mainstream news, it was on MSN, and all that. And it was the title of this headline was "Meat Causes Cancer." And everybody ran away from meat. What you need to do when you hear articles like this is actually read the study they are referring to. In this study, they fed these participants only in all a bunch of barbecue meat. Now, barbecue, you must understand, a lot of barbecue, meat, has burnt spots on it. Now, if you don't know this leads into my next one on the list. Burnt foods can lead to high cancer risks. That is true. Burnt foods cause carcinogens in the body. Now, carcinogens are directly linked to cancer. There are many things in this world that cause carcinogens. But here is what you need to understand. The dosage of meat that they were feeding these participants was ridiculous. They were only feeding them meat, only barbecue meat, and they were not giving them veggies or any type of anything else. It was only meat. It was only barbecued meat, and they were giving them this in a lot of calories. I think the calories were 3,000 to 4,000 calories of just meat. And these participants had some bad things happen to them. Cancer went up. Prostate cancer went up. Colon cancer went up. So these studies came out, and the headline was, meat causes cancer. It's been proven, or something like that. And everybody got shocked. Everybody was terrified. Luckily, there was good people online, good coaches that knew how to read studies, one like Lane Norton that broke down the study exactly and showed how asinine it was and how it doesn't matter. It doesn't really focus on most people. Once people realized that, people started finally figuring out that this was a complete bullshit study. If you do anything in abundance, it's bad. Okay? One thing to remember is like the artificial sweetener study. Remember when artificial sweeteners were demonized back in the day? It was like 2006 or 2007. Studies came out showing artificial sweeteners were really bad on the body and they were as bad as doing like meth and coke. Well, if you've ever read those studies, you know exactly what I mean when dosages are everything. They literally injected dosages of like the same amount as if you would drink a whole container of diet soda in one sitting. A whole container. Now, a whole container, I'm talking like 24 cans of diet soda in one sitting. That is what they showed to be bad in studies. People only see headlines and they get scared of shit. They're like, oh, artificial sweeteners cause cancer. No, crazy high dosages, 24 cans in an hour may raise your rate of getting cancer from diet soda. 2 diet sodas, 3 diet sodas, 4 diet sodas throughout the day, 5, 6, that ain't going to kill you. Maybe taking in 24 though in an hour, maybe that's going to wreak havoc on you. But also, who's going to do that? Who's going to drink 24 diet sodas in an hour? That's what I'm talking about when dosage is everything. These studies that show these crazy things that happen, a lot of times they happen with crazy dosages. It's not because of the ingredient. It's not because of the actual artificial sweetener itself. It's because of the dosage. If you drank 24 cans of water in an hour, how do you think you would feel? You would feel pretty bad. You'd probably have a headache because you flushed all your electrolytes out. You'd be constantly running to the bathroom. I don't even know if you could live from that. Drinking 24 cans of water in an hour. I don't even know if your body could keep up with that osmosis-wise. You might literally go into shock. From water. The studies that were done on rats with artificial sweeteners, they injected astronomical levels into them. That's why when people say, don't drink artificial sweeteners, you're going to die. They don't know the studies. They don't know it's all about dosage. The dosages is what killed the rodents in that study. It wasn't the artificial sweeteners. Dosage is everything. Whenever you're reading studies, remember that. Dosage is everything. Sleeping too much is bad for your health. True. Surprisingly, this is true. Now, you might be kind of surprised at that one because I talk all about the benefits of sleeping and getting quality sleep. But it was actually shown mental decline starts to kick in when you sleep for 9 to 10 hours a night, which is interesting. If you get 9 to 10 hours a night over time, your mental decline actually goes down, meaning you have trouble memorizing stuff. You kind of get into this, you kind of fall into the same type of side effects as when you don't get enough sleep. It's kind of interesting. It kind of proves my point on when I talk about, more if a little of something is good, then a more of something must be better. And that's a bad way to think. Because with a little sleep, bad things can happen. But with a lot of sleep, I guess more bad things can happen. So it's always important to find the middle ground of everything you do. Too much can always be a bad thing. Remember that. Sleeping, what I recommend for people is try to get, 7 to 8 hours a night. 7 to 8 is usually what I found works for me best, for my clients best. It just seems to be what works really good, 7 to 8 hours. And then honestly, 7 to 8 hours is not hard to get. You can be a night owl and go to bed super late and still get that. Especially if you follow other tips of mine, like, showering at night instead of the morning, laying out your clothes to go in the morning, making your life easy in the morning so that you don't have a lot of stuff to do. You can sleep in longer. Okay, so the next ones are kind of touchy subjects, but I wanted to cover them because I'm real with you guys on this podcast. I keep things real. I'm not afraid to talk about subjects that are demonized and put down. I'm not afraid to cover anything like that. So the next couple ones are going to be kind of, just, not office safe. Definitely if you're listening to this on a loudspeaker in an office, you definitely would want to turn this off right now. But if you're just on a private speaker where it's just you listening and you can only hear and it's not in public, you're fine. Next one is masturbation leads to lower testosterone. I don't know if you guys a lot of my listeners were even around to know this, but back in the day, there were different studies that came out and they were showing how masturbation can lead to lower testosterone levels in men. And it was, for a while, masturbation was really demonized because of, especially in the bodybuilding community, there was a lot of videos that came out saying, to no FAP was the term, to just not masturbate because it was bad on testosterone levels. And once again, this is a case of not reading the whole entire study, okay? Now, you need to understand, in the short term, masturbation, yes, can lower testosterone for the next couple hours. That's it. For a couple hours. It takes about 2 hours for your testosterone levels to go back up after an ejaculation. That when a man ejaculates, his testosterone falls in the short term. Okay, he just depleted, the seed of life. Literally reproductive cells. Your testosterone is important to produce those cells. So when you excrete that sperm, your testosterone does lower, and it can be lowered for maybe 2 hours out from that session. But guess what happens literally 2 hours later? Your testosterone is right back to normal. That's it. So yeah, masturbation may lower testosterone levels in the short term. But if you continue to read the study, in 2 hours, their testosterone levels were right back to normal. So the whole myth that masturbation causes you to lose testosterone and causes you to age quicker, that's all false. It's all false. It's completely false. Don't fall into that. Sex can improve your gym performance. Now, there was a university. The University of Florence did an interesting study. And they took soccer players with girlfriends and spouses and whatnot. And they had two different groups, okay? They had the group at one time have sex the night before, and then play soccer the next day. And what they found was their performance actually increased when the participants had sex the night before a game, which was very interesting. It actually did the exact opposite from what the thesis was on this study. Because what they were projecting was sex would decrease performance. Because this was, thinking that after sex, your testosterone's lower, you're more tired, so you would perform less good. And they found that when the participants had sex the night before a game, they actually were able to play harder. They could concentrate better. They had better just overall performance on the field. They felt stronger. They were more focused. They felt better, and they performed better. Then they did the same study, and they had the participants, they had the participants have sex a couple hours before they were going to perform on the field for soccer. And when they did that, they found that the people, when they showed up for soccer, they could not focus. Their energy sucked. They played like shit. Everything was down when they had sex a couple hours beforehand. So literally what this showed me was when I was reading through this study, and it made sense too. After sex, you're tired. You fall asleep easier. So it made sense why the people participated, were very tired on the field. But when you think about, why is it then the night before when they had sex and then slept and had a good workout, I don't think it was so much about the sex that caused the good workout. I think it was the fact that the sex improved the sleep quality, and the sleep quality there improved their performance for the next day. That is what I think happened in that study. People say in that study it was the sex actually that improved the soccer performance the next day. I think it was just the increased sleep quality they got from the sex. They had better sleep. They performed better. That's just they didn't find that in the study. That's just my thesis on why that happened. Because you do. If you have sex, you sleep better. That's been proven. Anybody who has had sex can atone to that. You have sex, you sleep really, really good. You sleep super deep. It works. So it kind of makes sense why that is true. But basically, it just comes down to sleep. If you can improve your sleep quality, your gym performance or whatever you're going to be doing is going to be enhanced. You have to get sore in your workouts to make progress. False. You don't have to get sore in your workouts. As a matter of fact, when you train long enough in life, you're going to get to a point where you barely ever get sore. Legs get sore for me quite frequently just because I only train legs 1 day a week. My frequency is lower. So the less frequency you have on a muscle, the more often it's going to get sore. If you want a muscle not to get sore anymore, you train it more often. If you train it less often, your chances are you're going to get more sore. Basically, the only reason you get sore in a workout, some people say they train with somebody new and then they get sore and they're like, oh, this guy knows what he's doing because he made me sore. No, it's because you did something you weren't used to doing. That's all that happened. It's not because it's not because you turned up more muscle tissue or you built more muscle. All it is the only reason somebody gets sore is because they do something that they're not used to doing. If you do a squat and then you do a squat with close-legged, if you never do close-legged squats, front squats or something, you're going to get sore from that. Stuff you don't do on a regular basis, you're going to get sore from. That's why bodybuilders, can not get sore. And then if they go out on a run with friends and they never run, they're like sore for the next 7 days. It's not because, running builds so much muscle. No, it's just because you didn't do it. You're not used to it. If you're not used to something, it's going to make you sore. It doesn't build more muscle. Being sore has nothing to do with building more muscle. All it can just show is that your body's not adapted to what you just did. Muscle grows in the gym, so train hard and all the time. False. Muscle grows out of the gym. In the gym, you break down muscle tissue. Out of the gym and all the rest of the day, you're in muscle recovery mode, muscle building mode, especially when you sleep. You build muscle out of the gym. So don't train all the time. You need to have recovery days, preferably 2 a week. You just need to make time for recovery because recovery happens outside the gym, not in the gym. Growth happens outside the gym. If you're having fun, it's not working. For a while, a couple years ago, there was different workouts that came out. A lot of fitness magazines presented this stuff. And they were basically these hell workouts. And they were basically on the premise of if you're having fun in the gym, then you're wasting your time. This is false. This is so false. And I'm even going to go on the record to say this is completely backwards. If you're not having fun in the gym, why even do it? If you're not having fun lifting weights, why even do it? Life is too short to do shit you don't want to do, or life is too short to do stuff that makes you mad or pissed off. If you're not having fun, why even do it? The people that torture themselves in their workouts, those people don't last. Those people are not people that train 20 years. Those people are the people that you see that come in through January and February on New Year's resolutions. They train their ass off. They make their workouts hell, and then you don't hear from them or see from them for another year later, and then they put on 20 more pounds of body fat, and they try the same thing again, and it's a cycle, and it keeps repeating every single year. It's crazy. It's insanity. Don't make your workouts to the point where you don't enjoy them. You should want to go to the gym every day. You should want to train. It's something you should want to do. If you don't want to do it, chances are you're not doing things you like doing, and you need to change it up because you should like going to the gym. Life is stressful enough. We don't need to make the gym stressful too. You can make really good progress when you're having fun. You work harder when you're having fun. Workouts don't need to be hell. You need to train in a gym to make progress. False. 2020 quarantine, I think showed a lot of people that you can build a lot of muscle outside the gym with just push-ups and pull-ups. And, or lifting a couch or lifting chairs or, getting creative. You don't need a gym to make progress. Obviously, it can help, but you don't need a gym to make progress. You should cut before bulking. This is true most of the time. You should never go into a bulk when you feel not happy with the way you look in a mirror. If you're not happy with the way you look in a mirror, chances are you're not going to be better off going to a bulk. Most of the time. I say most of the time because if you are an ectomorph, super skinny, have very little muscle, and you look in the mirror and you're not happy with what you see, don't cut. Please don't cut. You're going to turn into a skeleton. Don't do that. If you're super skinny and you're not happy with what you see in the mirror, that is a time to bulk. That is a time to put on more size because you'll probably be happier with more size. But for most people should always get lean before bulking. Because when you get lean, you can see what you need to work on. You can't see all the muscle when you have more fat. So it's important before you go into a bulk to be happy with what you see in the mirror and then be able to see what you need to improve on. When you're lean, you can see that, oh, I need to improve my lower lats. They're not as big. Oh, I need to build more better traps. They're just not as big as I want them to be. That is all revealed when you're leaner. So you should always lean down before a bulk. And also, not just for that, but for insulin sensitivity. If you've listened to my other podcast, you know that insulin sensitivity is the key to building more muscle over time. And that's something that is built when you're leaner. Insulin sensitivity goes up when you're leaner. So you should always get leaner before a bulk majority of the time unless you're already a stick. Then you need to eat everything in sight and go lift weights. All right, thin equals healthy. False. I think you guys probably knew that. This thin equals healthy mentality, the thinner you are, the healthier you are, this is not true. Matter of fact, you're usually more healthy with more fat on you because the body prefers a little bit more fat. It's healthier on the joints. It's healthier on just the muscle tissue. It's healthier on everything. It's healthier even on your testosterone levels. When you have a little bit more fat on your body, your testosterone's higher. That's why men with 17% body fat will usually have higher testosterone than men that are under 10%. So thin is not always healthy. Thin is usually never healthy. It's usually important to get, to build some thickness into you. Abs are made in the kitchen. False. But with a twist. This term that people use, abs are made in the kitchen. So what you need to understand is this term, abs are made, this is the false part of that. Abs are revealed in the kitchen. That is true. But abs are not made in the kitchen. I want to start by saying, first, everyone has abs. Everybody has abs. You don't need to make them. God already made them for you. They're there. I guarantee you have a six-pack. Guarantee it. Is it under some fat? Maybe. Probably. Possibly. You reveal the abs with the kitchen, with your diet. But the abs are already made. You already have abs. Now you can build those abs. You can maybe get more definition by training abs, but they are not made in the kitchen. That whole statement, abs are made in the kitchen. That is, you already have abs. They're revealed in the kitchen. That is true. Just a little pet peeve when I hear that. Abs are already made. God made you abs. You already have them. You don't need to make abs. You cannot spot target fat loss. True. You can't. If you have fat on your lower belly, you cannot spot target that. Fat is easily distributed on the body in an equally manner, and it's also taken off in an equal manner. Now, there are parts on a male that have harder body fat loss than parts on a female. So, for example, males, we struggle with lower belly fat and also, just belly fat in general. That's where men mostly store their fat. Women, they store a lot on their ass, a lot on their thighs. That is their hard parts to get rid of. That's just, it's different for everybody. But usually people have points on their body that just store fat easier. Now, the sad thing is, those points are also the first to come on, and they're the last to come off. That's why they're stubborn. They're super stubborn. People think, too, you can target that area by doing something. There's articles that come out online, or buy my product, my supplement will target your lower belly fat. No, it's not true. It's completely false. If it was true, we all would have six-pack abs walking around. We'd all look like just awesome. We'd all look like superheroes, and that's just not true. Belly belts help lose stubborn fat. False, but they can help you lose water weight to lean down for a contest or a photo shoot or a movie shoot or whatever you need to do if you're trying to get super lean. What you need to know, though, is you're only going to benefit from these things, these belts, is if you're already crazy lean. when you're already crazy lean, you can tell when you're holding on to a little bit more water. Your abs look a little bit more fluffy, a little bit more puffy. That is water weight. That can actually be reduced by wearing these belts. Mike O'Hearn, he's a big fan of these belts. A couple days, he wears these belts leading up to a photo shoot. And they can help you, deplete more water and sweat a little bit more and come out having a drier look. They can work for that. But the whole mentality on Instagram, this 200-pound, 300-pound woman putting on this belt, I'm losing weight sitting in my chair. Yeah. That's false. It just doesn't work like that. Wearing a belt does not make you lose fat like these are marketed to. They help you lose water weight, but not fat. And you're only going to notice the benefit is if you're already crazy lean. You need supplements. This is false. The word literally tells you this. Supplements, the definition of supplement is something that supplements your diet. It adds to your diet. It adds what you don't have already in your diet, meaning that they can help. Supplements can help because they maybe will allow you to not have to make sure you're getting all your micronutrients from food, but they are not a must. They are not needed. Supplements, you do not need supplements. Carbs are evil. False. I don't need to cover this much. You already know carbs are good. Carbs fuel glycogen, muscle glycogen. Muscle glycogen fuels workouts. And when you can fuel your workouts, you make more progress. You need to schedule cleanses for your body. Oh, yes. I've always wanted to cover this on a podcast. If there is one thing that I hear so much, is this. When do we need to do a cleanse? I feel like my body needs to be cleansed. Stop right there. God has already created a device that's already in you that does this for you all the time. And this thing is called your liver. Your liver, as long as you didn't ruin it in college with alcohol, its job is to cleanse the body. It is absolutely pointless to do cleanses. Juice cleanses, vegetable cleanses, only eat this cleanse, only eat that cleanse. They are marketing schemes to sell you snake oil. Your body, you do not need to do cleanses. There is no such thing as cleansing the body. There is no such thing as cleansing the body. Please understand that. This is something that just has been a pet peeve for the longest time because the liver's job is to cleanse the body. It does it all the time. My liver right now is cleansing my body. That's how cool it is. That's how amazing God is. He already made us a device that does this in the background. We don't need to do this. We don't need to schedule cleanses. Our body doesn't need to be cleansed. The liver does that. As long as you got a liver, as long as you didn't ruin it in college, God's got your back. He's got you. He gave you a liver. You don't need to do these crazy cleanses. The scale is the best tool to see progress. False. The mirror is. The scale can really lie to you. Your weight can be going up on the scale and you can be getting fatter. Use the mirror. I never use the scale. I can't remember the last time I stepped on a scale. I know how much I weigh just because I don't fluctuate my calories much. I know I take in about 3,000 to 3,500 a day. And for me, that's like maintenance. So I know my body weight is probably, anywhere from 158 to 165. And I fluctuate in that area. I usually don't go over 165 and I usually don't go under 158. This is something that I know over time, though, that happens. The mirror is your friend. Use the mirror. The mirror will tell you if you need to cut. It'll tell you if you need to bulk. It'll tell you if you need to up your calories or lower your calories. The mirror does not lie to you. All the scale does is measure gravity on your body. The scale literally takes gravity and measures that effect force pushing down on Earth. That's all the scale does. Who cares if you weigh 190 if you look better when you're 160? The scale isn't going to tell you that, but the mirror will. The mirror will say you're a fat ass at 190 and tell you look fantastic when you're 160. The mirror is what you need to look at. The mirror is what will guide your physique to the best physique that you can have. The scale means nothing. Calories are all that matter. For body composition, this is true, but for your health, no. Now, I don't know if my listeners are young enough to know this, but the If It Fits Your Macros diet, I don't know if they still talk about that. That was popularized back in like 2005, 2006. But if it fits your macros diet was basically people found out they could eat anything they wanted as long as they were within their macros. And it works. You can. If you're within your macros and calories for the day, it doesn't matter if you're filling your belly with Pop-Tarts or the carbs from Pop-Tarts or the carbs from rice. Your body recognizes it as the same. And this is true. People built amazing physiques, and there was this diet that was the Pop-Tart and protein shake diet. People proving that they could build rock-hard physiques with just Pop-Tarts and protein shakes. And people proved that if it fits your macros, works. But what's not factored in on that is health. Health is everything, guys. You have one life on this earth. And that life is connected to your body. If your health goes to shit, then your body goes to shit. And if your body goes to shit, your life goes to shit. Health should always be the number one thing you need to think about. And if something is affecting your health in a negative way, that needs to be fixed. That is the most important thing that matters when you're trying to focus on living the best life that you can, your health. So if you're only filling your calories up with bullshit foods, like Pop-Tarts and shit like that, you're not getting the micronutrients you would as if you would eat those carbs from, say, a potato or a banana. You're getting those micronutrients in. Micros are very important. So while, yes, you can build an amazing physique, as long as you look at your macros, we need to know health and performance are very important as well. You're not going to perform as better and be as healthy on Pop-Tarts as you would be with potatoes. Potatoes will always be a better source just because they are a more whole food. They are literally directly from God himself, and they have micros and all that good stuff. Beginner gains is real. This is true. In the first 1 to 3 years, you can make a crazy amount of progress. You can make so much progress, and there are people that have followed me in person that understand this. You can make so much progress in those 1 to 3 years that people will think you're on steroids when you start training properly. Because most people in their 1 to 3 years, the reason some people think this is false, beginner gains is false, is because they don't know how to train. They start training and they waste those 1 to 3 years bullshitting around at the gym, not having a structured program, and then they make fun of people and say, oh, those people took steroids. The people that actually knew what they were doing and trained for 1 to 3 years with somebody that knew what they were doing that took them to a different level. Those people get accused for steroids in those first 3 years because they make so much progress. And other people are like, oh, I didn't have beginner gains like that. They got to be using the steroids. No, it doesn't work like that. If beginner gains are the same for everybody, even if you are a hard gainer, even if you put on muscle like in a hard manner, the first 3 years are your best years to build muscle. I say that again. The first 3 years, if you just have never picked up a weight, you are in a very good place. Because if you listen to my if you listen to my podcast and you read my book and you're just now getting into weight training, you will probably look like you're on steroids in 3 years. I can guarantee you. I can guarantee it because I have been around this block. I've done this stuff for 16 years. I've taken on the clients. I've done this stuff myself. I know how this stuff works. And if you follow my methods and you've trained and you are in your beginner gains, you will probably look like you use roids in 3 years because of the methods that I teach you. And I feel bad for the people that don't have access to a solid coach in those first 3 years because those 3 years are so sacred to make use of. Those first 3 years need to be hard. They need to be eating in a calorie surplus. They need to be training with proper structure. They need to be utilizing volume, frequency, intensity in a proper manner in the program that you use. If you follow those things and you eat in a surplus, those first 3 years of your training, you can make amazing gains. So much gains that you will feel like you're on steroids yourself, and other people will accuse you of using roids, even though you're not. It's crazy what you can do in those first 3 years. Do not discount the beginner gains. They are a real thing, and they do fall off about 3 years later because your body adapts. And remember, the body doesn't want to put on muscle. The body does everything it can to not put on muscle because it's harder on the metabolism. It burns more calories at rest, and these are all things that the body does not want to do. So make use of those first 3 years. Eat in a surplus. Follow a coach that knows what he's doing. A structured coach that knows how to program. A coach that knows the importance of balancing the 3 things that function, that turn training around. That is frequency, that is intensity, and that is in volume. A coach that can do those, program those, and eat in a surplus, and you're going to be amazing what you can do. Cheat days are fine. This is false for most people. What happens when you do a cheat day, now I'm not talking about a cheat meal, a cheat day, is you can pound down 4,000 to 5,000 calories. Now, if you are trying to diet, you are trying to lose weight, trying to get leaner, you dieted for the whole week, and then you had a cheat day, so you're remember, 3,500 calories is a pound. So let's say you diet and you eat, 2,500 calories for the week, and then you binge on Saturday, have a cheat day, and you take in 6,000 calories. What did you just do? You just added back the calories from some of those days of dieting through the week. So literally you went one step back, one step forward, and 4 steps backward. This is why the people that do cheat days when they're trying to lose weight, when they have weight to lose, never make progress because they literally take 1 step forward and 5 steps backward. Now, I said false for most people because there are people like myself where we can have cheat days. We're lean. We maintain leanness easily. We have higher metabolisms. We don't need to watch our diets like some other people do. We can have cheat days. They aren't going to kill us. Our metabolic rate will catch up with itself and we'll be right back fine again. But for most people cannot handle cheat days without going back on their diet, without going back on progress. If you have a good metabolism, you can have cheat days every now and then. They're not the worst, especially around like holidays and whatnot. I mean, who tracks during holidays, really? Does anybody actually track during holidays? I mean, like for Thanksgiving or whatnot, I don't. I mean, I never track really anymore anyway, but even for holidays back in the day when I did track, I never tracked. I just ate the food I wanted to, and I usually had kick-ass workouts because my calories were so high then. Cardio eats muscle. This is false, but makes it harder to build, though. So cardio itself does not eat muscle. What it does, though, is eat the nutrients that you could be using to further muscle gains. I kind of covered this already earlier. But cardio, when doing cardio, lots of cardio, takes away the energy, takes away the glycogen that you could be using on muscle, that you could be using to build muscle. So when you're trying to build muscle, I tell people to avoid cardio, not because cardio eats muscle. That's not true. I tell them that because it uses calories that they would have to later add in, or it uses energy that takes away from their weight training session. Because when you're trying to build muscle, weights need to be at the most important thing. Tone muscle is the goal. Okay, this is almost up there with cleansing. I hate this. I absolutely hate this. This is a pet peeve. The word tone needs to be eliminated from the English dictionary and all dictionaries. Listen to this closely. There is no such thing as toning. There is no such thing as toning. You cannot tone a muscle. Here is what you can do to a muscle. You can make a muscle bigger. You can make a muscle smaller. And you can build the density of a muscle with heavy weights. Those are the 3 things you can do to a muscle. Bigger, denser, and smaller. Did I say tone? Did I say tone in there at all? No, you cannot tone a muscle. You cannot change the shape of a muscle. These people that use the word tone, I know what they really mean. They really mean like lean down, have more muscle definition. But the word tone is a pet peeve. I hate the word tone because you cannot tone a muscle. It is physiologically impossible to tone a muscle. You can make it bigger, you can make it smaller, and you can make it denser. Crunches eliminate belly fat. False. Crunches, they work the abs. You can't spot reduce belly fat. It's as simple as that. The pump is the most important thing when lifting. Now, I don't know about you, but Arnold said the pump is very, very important. And that's my Australian accent, which is terrible. I can't do an Australian accent. I wish I could. I wish I could do an Australian accent. That'd be really cool. I would talk like Arnold all the time if I could do an Australian accent. Very jealous of those people that can interpret Arnold. The pump is not the most important thing in lifting. The most important thing when you lift is volume. And I've mentioned it 500 million times because it's the most important thing. Volume over time. If volume over time goes up with structured deloads, you will make progress. You will build muscle. The pump, the only thing the pump does, the pump is blood flow. Now, blood flow is important. Cellular swelling is important. There is studies showing that the pump is somewhat important when training. Like if you're never getting a pump, something is wrong. Because a pump actually shows you have healthy blood flow. It shows you are producing cellular swelling. These are good things, especially when trying to build muscle. So if you're never getting a pump, that should be something you need to look at. But if you are just focused on chasing the pump is the most important thing. That is not the most important thing. Chasing the pump is not the most important thing. Volume is the most important thing. Carb load before a hard training day. True. This is very true. You can carb load before a hard training day and make a lot of progress. This is why, before a powerlifting competition, you generally eat more carbs going into a competition. You can lift more weight. You have more glycogen. Think about this as like a sponge. I've used this analogy before. A dry sponge, you drop it in a bucket of water, becomes big and bloated. The same thing with your workout. If you want to be big and bloated for your workout, lift more heavier weights, carb load before that training session. You're going to lift more. I guarantee it. You're going to have a better pump. You're going to lift stronger. You're going to feel kind of like you're on steroids. Drink water, even when not thirsty. False. The body has a thirst level for a reason. Drink when you're thirsty. Don't drink when you're not thirsty. The body is very smart. The body is very intelligent. God made us amazing creatures. The body, when you chug water when you're not thirsty, it is literally saying, "Why are you drinking so much water? I don't need this water. I'm fine." I don't know if the body talks in like an Asian accent, but maybe it does. I don't know. But don't drink water when you're not thirsty. You have thirst because that is when your body is thirsty. You have thirst. Thirst will make you want to drink. But if you're just chugging water for the hell of it, chances are you're flushing out electrolytes. Don't do it. just don't do it. Remember my Asian accent telling you not to drink when you're not thirsty, or not to drink when you're not thirsty, if you're ever thinking about that. Just remember that Asian accent. You need to stretch before you train. This is false. If you have my book, and I talk a lot about this, how static stretching before a workout can decrease your performance by 25% in that training session. It's been shown. I didn't create that. Studies did. Studies showed that when you static stretch a muscle, static stretching is in a static position for longer than 30 seconds. When you static stretch a muscle, it can decrease your performance by 25%. And the reason being is because think about this as like a rubber band. And I explain this very good in my book. If you have a rubber band and you stretch that rubber band a lot, what happens to the rubber band? It expands. It becomes elastic. It's not as tight. Now, for you archers and hunters, you know that when you hunt with bow, you need a powerful enough bowstring, an 80-pound draw to somewhere in there to be able to shoot longer distance with your arrows. Your arrows need to be powerful enough to pierce a deer. That is a tighter drawstring, okay? A tighter drawstring on the bow. When you have tighter muscles, they perform better. A tighter muscle will be able to lift more weight. It will be able to have more explosion abilities. Tighter muscles are a good thing. People think you will pull a muscle when it's tight. No, you're more likely to get injured when you have a stretched muscle before you train because your body cannot, your reaction speed on that muscle is slower. The muscle is too elastic. Having a stretched muscle before lifting heavy weights is a bad thing. Now, stretching after your workout is very beneficial. Stretching after your workout can promote longevity. It can promote healthier joints. And it can promote not dropping the mic off the table of the podcast room. Yeah, I hope this still works. Just give me 1 second, guys. I got to run a sound. And that's what happens when you do these with no editing included. So, yeah, stretching before you train, it's not needed. It should not be done. Stretch after you train. Save the big static stretching for after you train. Dynamic stretching is very good before workouts, like arm swings, leg swings. Dynamic stretching, movement through swinging, or movement through stretches is a good thing to get you nice and warm for your workouts. And that also has been shown to not harm the ability to lift more weights. It doesn't hamper your progress. You need high fiber in your diet. This is false. I talked about this in my testosterone podcast, but when I found I took away fiber in my diet I lowered my fiber in my diet. My testosterone actually went up. I had better digestion. I wasn't bloated. I just felt better. You don't need crazy high fiber in your diet. These myths of all this, take this fiber supplement. It'll be good for you and everything. I can't get with that. Not with what I've seen. You're too old to lift weights. False. I don't know if you've ever seen the 80-year-old grandma that power lifts on Instagram. If not, go look her up. But she's a pretty amazing inspiration to watch. She can squat like almost 300 pounds. She can squat more than me right now with my discs. Wow, that makes me feel terrible. That makes me feel like I'm 90 years old. My discs are in worse shape than this 80-year-old grandma that squats almost 300 pounds. That's fantastic to know. Okay, let's just move on. Let's just forget about that. Lifting is bad for your joints. False. Lifting actually strengthens your joints over time. You shouldn't lift more than an hour. This is false. You can lift more than an hour. Obviously, if you're lifting more than 2 hours, you're going to be in the gym more longer than you need to be. But I mean, when I used to power lift, my workouts were always at 2 hours, to be able to get in squats and deadlifts and everything and all in one session. They were always at least 2 hours. Women need to train different than men. This is false, but women do have more endurance than men. Women also can take less rest time between sets and be fine. Men, we need more recovery between training sessions. We need more recovery between working sets. Our recovery sucks compared to women's recovery. Our endurance sucks compared to women's endurance. Women have so much better endurance than us men. They can last a lot longer training than we men can. It is what it is. Women have a lot higher pain tolerance. They can usually go for more reps in an exercise. They can go harder. They can take less rest time. It's pretty crazy, how women they can do a lot of things that men can't do when it comes to being able to withstand things in the gym. The higher endurance is a big one. I mean, women, they just don't need as much recovery. Men, we just need more recovery. It takes more out of us when we lift than it does for women, apparently. And maybe that's correlated too to just men lift heavier weights usually more often than not than women. So we just need more recovery. But it is interesting though, the fact that women can just have such crazy endurance compared to us men. But in the grand scheme of things though, women, they should train like men. It's you don't need to train differently because you're a woman. That's just really asinine to think. Lift the same weights, lift heavy, train the same way. Nothing changes if you're a woman. Train the same way. You could actually handle more volume though, probably, and you can probably take less rest days and be fine though. Fruit is bad. False. Fruit is great. Fruit is fantastic. I hate that fruit got demonized because fruit is awesome. Fruit actually is more beneficial than vegetables. Fruit has more micronutrients in it than vegetables, and I like to see people eat more fruit than vegetables. It's more beneficial for your health. Fat burners work. False. Fat burners you only notice when you have just a little bit of fat left, like getting lean for a contest or a photo shoot. This can help maybe bring out a little bit more striations. That is when a fat burner can maybe be used. But for the 300 per pound person that's trying to lose weight, don't get on a fat burner. You are wasting your money. Eat lots of fat to lose fat. Use the keto diet. False. Yeah, you may use more fat when you're in keto, but just because you're eating lots of fat doesn't mean you're going to lose more fat. That's why a balanced diet is always just better. Don't eat after 7 if you're trying to lose weight. Kind of covered this already. False. You can eat whenever. It doesn't really matter the time of day. Your body is always working on something. Never be satisfied. False. We live in a mentality nowadays where everybody has to hashtag on their photos, never satisfied, always grinding, always working hard, I outwork you, never satisfied. This is asinine. You're never going to be happy. We live in a time and age where people are afraid to be satisfied. They're afraid to say, "Oh, I'm satisfied," because it is literally demonized to say you're satisfied nowadays. Like the other day at the gym, I can't remember what we were talking about, but somebody was like, "Oh, I'm never satisfied with my physique," and I said, "Really? You'll get to a point where you're satisfied because I'm satisfied with my physique." And they kind of looked at me like, "What did you just say?" They literally looked at me like I was bringing demons out of hell when I said I was satisfied. It was like the death stare, basically. Like, you can't say that. But yeah, it's not bad to be satisfied. I've done this shit for 16 years. I'm satisfied with where I'm at. Sure, I don't look the most best in the gym, but I don't really care about that. It's okay to not be the best in the gym. It's okay to not, be the monster in the gym that everybody looks at. It's okay to be satisfied. And this is life tips too. It's okay to be satisfied if you have a job that you like. It's okay if you're satisfied with the money you make. You don't need to always be in this, grind this, always working your ass off. You can be satisfied in life. And matter of fact, the people that do say and that are not afraid to say they're satisfied are generally happier. They're less stressed. They're more at peace, and they are just happier. You don't live this mentality of never being satisfied, because guess what? You're never going to be happy then. Get to a point in your life where you are satisfied. That should be the goal, not to never be satisfied. I don't know why it's all the hype to always be grinding, never be satisfied. I never understood that. You want to be satisfied. You want to get to a point in life where you're happy and at peace. Think about this as like a Star Wars reference real quick. Yoda, for example. Yoda is the most badass Jedi. He was the most badass Jedi. He didn't look the most jacked. He didn't look the most intimidating, but he was satisfied. He knew that if he wanted to, he could crush every one of those Jedi or any Sith, because he had that confidence. He was satisfied with where he was. He lived a very peaceful life. Yoda did in the Star Wars universe. He lived very super peaceful, always meditating, super peaceful. And he didn't live like, gotta always be grinding, gotta always be getting better with my lightsaber, always gotta be striking down the Siths. No, he was satisfied, and it brought him peace, the inner peace of a Jedi. So, being satisfied, it's okay. It's okay to be satisfied. Working out gives you energy. This is false, surprisingly. People will say, oh, I get energy from working out. Well, maybe at first, but if you're really into working out, you're going to feel more tired actually during the day, just because you put more energy out for your workout. It's just kind of interesting. People say, oh, working out gives me energy. I don't know what you're doing in the gym, but I'm tired as hell when I come home from the gym. You have to confuse the muscle to grow. You got to confuse it, because if it's confused, then it grows. False. P90X, for example. P90X was a great program. I'm a huge fan of Tony Horton. But the marketing scheme behind that whole program, you have to confuse the muscle to grow. Muscles don't have a neurological system. They don't have a brain. They don't know anything. They don't have a conscience. Therefore, they can't be confused. You can't confuse a muscle to grow. To make a muscle grow, you make it adapt over a tension over time. Muscle memory is real. This is true. Anybody who has had an injury knows that this is true. Whenever you come back from an injury, this is why people that come back from injuries usually look better, because you build back muscle twice as fast after you lose it. It's true. If you take off time from the gym, if you get a different job or you get married or have kids and you need to take time off the gym and you lose muscle, or maybe you have a sickness or an injury or a surgery and you take time off the gym, you're going to lose that muscle. But guess what? You're going to put it on twice as fast, because muscle memory is a real thing. Your body does memorize what muscle it did build. So if you ever have an injury, don't get discouraged. You'll build it back twice as fast. You need to sweat in your workout. False. Sweating, all that sweating means is your body is trying to cool itself. It doesn't mean you worked harder. It doesn't mean you burned more calories. It just means it got to a point where your body needed to cool itself. That's literally what sweat is. It's not a badge of honor walking out of the gym, sweat all around you. It doesn't mean anything. Don't lock out your weights to keep tension on muscle. This is false. Triceps, the second and third head of the tricep are actually best utilized on the lockout. You're actually cutting yourself short if you're not doing lockouts on tricep extensions. Chest is kind of, I have mixed reviews on that. You do want to lock out when you're doing like flies, you don't want to lock out when you're doing like flies, but on a press, that's not a bad thing to lock out. You can actually contract the chest a little bit better on the lockout. If you're benching, for example, you don't do half reps. You don't do just quarter reps. So it just depends on the muscle you're training, but more often than not, it's fine to lock out. It really is. Don't demonize it like so many people do. And the last one on this list, if a little is good, then a lot must be great. This is false. If something is good, and this goes for anything in life, if a little of something is good, don't do a ton of it, because chances are a ton of it's going to be a bad thing. That's just a little life thing to remember. And with that, guys, we are at 1 hour and 49 minutes. I hope you enjoyed this podcast. I hope this kind of shattered some of those myths out there that people have fallen into for years. This just needed to be done, this podcast topic. And I know why you guys chose this, because this is just something that I'm sure you guys wanted me to hear my opinion on some of these topics, because some of them are just completely asinine. I hope you guys have a good, healthy, safe, and blessed Thanksgiving. Eat a lot of food and make those gains in the gym. Thanksgiving is a time to be with your family, eat a lot of food, and also in the gym, this is a time of year where people make the most PRs in their sessions because of the extra food. Utilize that food, put it to good use, have some amazing workouts, and we will be back next week with another brand new episode. Have a good week, guys. God bless, and stay strong.